The warm-up quiz today is multiple choice. All you need is a small square of paper with A, B, C, or D on it, or you can put E if you think it's none of the above. Answer is not A, it should be B. There we go. Number 2. The answer on this one should be C. Number 3. Answer on this one should be D. Number 4. The answer should be C. To find a derivative using the chain rule, product rule, or quotient rule, your test is tomorrow. The test will be tomorrow if we have a delay or a full day. If it's a delay, it's a modified test. Full day, regular test. If there is no school tomorrow, there is no test, period, and we move on to the next unit when we come back from spring break. It's too long to wait to go from one day for an entire week, and then we end up having to go back and review again. So it's a lost cause after that point. Here's example 1. On this, you have y equals a negative 2x to the negative 2 plus 6x to the negative 3 over 4x minus, or actually 4x to the negative 6 power. Step 1 is you have to simplify this. Try to remove the negative exponents and make it something that's all positive, and then go back and simplify from there. When you do that, on your first step, it should look like this. Notice that all the negative exponents have gone to the bottom in the numerator and the denominator. At the top, you have x to the second, x to the third. We want to be able to have the same denominator and add the tops to create one fraction. So you're going to multiply this by x and the top by x so that you can have an x to the third on the bottom. What you do to the bottom here, you do to the top in that fraction and any other one. When you do that, you should have negative 2x over x to the third plus 6 over x to the third. The bottom stays the same for right now. On your next step, you want to add these two together. Once you add these two together, you're creating just one fraction. That way you can multiply by the reciprocal of the bottom to create just one fraction that is more simplified than what we started with. So it's negative 2x plus 6 over x to the third on top. There's your one fraction, and of course the bottom stays the same up to this point. Your next step is to write the top fraction and then the second fraction beside it as a multiplication problem, except the second fraction must be flipped. When you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal, and there it is. We set this up nice and neat so that we can cancel diagonally. X to the third would be gone, and what you're left with up here is x to the third. In other words, 6 minus 3 is 3. The largest one was on top, so that's where your remainder of x's will stay. With this x to the third here, with that becoming an x to the third, you would multiply that by each of these items there. And of course everything would end up being over 4. So there's the multiplication on top by the x to the third, and then on the bottom you just have a 4. There is no need to use the quotient rule because you can separate these into two different fractions. Negative 2 over 4 x to the fourth, and then plus 6 over 4 x to the third. And of course you would have to simplify those two fractions to make it even easier. If you did the derivative now, then you would end up having to reduce later. Of course, this will end up being a negative half, and this will end up being a positive 3 over 2. Simplify those, and you come up with a negative half x to the fourth plus 3 halves x to the third. This is much easier to find a derivative for. You'll bring this 4 down, multiply by a negative half, and decrease the exponent by 1. Bring the 3 down, multiply it by the numerator of 3, decrease this exponent by 1. And your final answer should be negative 2x to the third plus 9/2 x to the second. Here is a practice problem, and your first step is to simplify the negative exponents. When you do that, you end up with fractions on the top and the bottom. On the bottom, you want a common denominator, and that would be x to the third. Clearly, you would have had to have multiplied by x, top and bottom here, to get that. And then combine these two together, there. And when you do that, you flip and multiply on the next slide. These cancel out, and you're left with negative 2 over 5x minus 4. To find a derivative for that, the bottom stays the same times the derivative of the top, which was 0. And then the top stays the same, negative 2, times the derivative of the bottom, and then square the bottom. Comes out to be 10 over the quantity squared of 5x minus 4.